So this is going to be a slightly shorter session than the other Tech Week sessions, which are all 90 minutes in length. I expect this will be around about 25 to 30 minutes. It was my pleasure to open up Tech Week 2014 as the keynote speaker, and it's also my great pleasure as well to wrap up Tech Week and review what we've done over the week of QA Tech Week 2014. So I'm the Executive Director of Training at QA, and in that role it's my responsibility to keep QA ahead of the technology curve and ensure that our people and our curriculum is right at the cutting edge of technology. And one of the things I think we wanted to do with Tech Week was to kind of showcase that and provide some support and insight into the world of technology for our customers and for our course attendees, both present and future. So I think we have done that, and it's my pleasure tonight to kind of look back and look at the week in review. So let's get started. So the agenda for this session is to take a review of some of the challenges which are facing IT professionals in the industry today. No doubt that technology is changing today, probably faster than it's ever changed, and as IT professionals we all have to keep up with that technology change. So during the keynote speech we spoke about some of those challenges, and I'd like to just quickly review those during this session. And then what we will look at is the content of Tech Week in Review. Now, I'm sure that people attending the session today will have seen a number of QA Tech Week sessions. I'm not sure an individual would necessarily have seen them all, so what it gives you a chance to do is look at all of the sessions in review to see if there's anything that you would like to take a look at again if you didn't manage to see the live session. I'll cover it in more detail later on, but the good news is that all of the Tech Week sessions were recorded and will be made available, so I'll explain how that will happen as a process as we move through the slide deck this evening. I'd like to just quickly cover what's next for attendees who did attend one or more sessions this week. And finally, I think it's entirely my responsibility and my pleasure to say some acknowledgements and thank yous to the team that made QA Tech Week possible. So that's the agenda for this session. So one of the things that I think is important as we look at technology is to say, well, what is the challenge that's facing IT professionals in the market today? And when I was putting together the keynote, I came up with a number of insights which I think most people would agree with in the world of technology. So what we want to do is just kind of recap on those on the wrap-up session today. The first and foremost here, which I think is absolutely integral, and it's a very broad topic, but it's probably the most important one, which is how does IT add business value? And IT has always been historically a support tool within an organization. It's been a support function. IT has been what has made a business tick, how it managed its employees, its services, its systems, its infrastructure. But these days, in today's world, it's actually not about enabling businesses, it's actually about driving businesses. So IT adding business value is about aligning IT policy with wider business targets. It's also about, even if you're not an IT service provider in its purest sense of being a technology provider, whether it be a web provider, a web service provider, or a system integrator, even if your product is not an IT-related product, the IT department is absolutely part of showcasing and providing access to services and products through information technology, whether that be through marketing or messaging vehicles, or whether it be through accessing those products through some kind of online transactional service. But let's not forget as well that at the end of the day, IT is also there to be a business enabler around efficiencies and around processes. So I think the challenge for an IT senior manager today is to ensure that while they're looking at what IT can do to strategically move the business forward and the organization forward in the external sense, it's also not losing sight of the fact that business efficiencies, business process efficiencies can also be enabled through IT. So it's making sure you get that balance absolutely right. Probably part of that balance is to understand what the client inside your organization looks like, and that could either be your own user base, or it could be end users who are consuming your products and your services through your external presence. And of course, the changing client these days is not just about the various types and types of PCs and laptops you might deploy, but it's about tablets that are out there, it's about the smartphones and the mobile devices. And of course, with the growing proliferation of different types of devices and different types of operating systems, with the Android I suite and the iOS suite and the Microsoft suite being the key three ones, what do you do around that mobile device management? And I guess the key question is, do you provide mobile devices to your users, or do you allow people to bring in their own devices, and do you mandate what type of client they are allowed to use? So do you say, yes, we are an iOS shop, so therefore you can bring in your Apple devices, or do you say we're an Android supported organization, or is it a combination of all of them? And if that is the case, you've got a real challenge on your hands to make sure that the security policies that you have around mobile devices and how they are accessing the corporate network is absolutely first class. Of course, the other part of mobile and handheld devices is that now you've got those in the network, people will be able to access the social media, and how do we use social media as a business tool. So I think the way that people interact with technology in a day-to-day business environment, typically replicating how they use technology in the social world, becomes one of the biggest challenges and questions that an IT professional is facing today. Moving alongside from that, but certainly a very similar overlapping topic is how do we then go ahead and embrace what's happening on the web? And we're in the next seismic shift of web when it comes to how we provide access to our capability and our solutions on the web. And now the first and most critical decision is, if we are providing people with functionality from our external presence, do we build apps which can be downloaded and managed on the devices, an app for the Apple platform, one for the Android platform, and so on, or do we build responsive websites, and those responsive websites are capable of recognizing and managing the look and feel of that website based on the device which is accessed? And of course, that means we need to build websites which are responsive to the platform which is accessing that external site. From that, we would probably want to look at building single web page solutions rather than having linear web page access, and of course that requires a whole new world of website development, which is one of the key topics around tech week has been web development, and that's certainly right at the front of the mindset of people who are managing IT infrastructure today. And if you look at the two topics of the client side, the mobile client and the web client, looking at it from the other perspective, then you say, well, what happens to my infrastructure? My infrastructure could well be on-premise today. It could be on-premise in a data center using a virtualization solution. The question today facing a lot of people is it right for me to make a selective decision about moving some, all, or none of my infrastructure to the cloud? Again, whether that be externally facing infrastructure or internal infrastructure. So are you going to embrace the cloud? Massive question for any IT manager, IT decision maker today. If you are going to embrace the cloud, is it going to be purely subscribing to a public cloud solution? Are you going to be managing your own private cloud environment using virtualization solutions? Or are you going to be managing a combination of the two using a hybrid model? And of course, if you are going to be moving into that cloud procurement, then you need to decide whether you're subscribing to applications as a service and just logging directly into applications from that cloud provider. Are you going to be looking at the platform? So are you going to be building on top of a subscribed platform? Or are you going to be subscribing to the infrastructure, in which case you need to build your own platform and then build your own applications and data sets on top of those platforms? From my perspective, I think it's fair to say that infrastructure as a service is typically the one which is currently the most popular as a solution. It gives you the advantage of not having to manage your own hardware infrastructure, but it does give you your own advantage of being able to manage your own platforms, manage your own data sets, manage your own applications. All of that, of course, will require migration strategies and architecture around that cloud-based solution. And again, these very much are interlinked topics, but once you've figured out what kind of client solution you want to go for, and then you've figured out whether you want to go for cloud-based solutions or stick with entirely on-premise infrastructure, your next question then is, well, okay, then how many of these key critical decisions are going to impact on my security policies? And you have to secure your environment, and that means implementing and managing and strengthening security and privacy policies, making sure that you protect not just your assets, your data, your your applications, but also your people, and whether they be working within your premises or working away from your premises in transit or at home. And of course, as we've just spoken about, securing the extended network being the client side, where we might be allowing people to bring their own devices to work, and of course the server side, where the edge, your perimeter edge, doesn't exist really anymore in a physical sense because you've got that cloud-based infrastructure. And I think perimeter security is one of the most difficult things to even describe today, never mind manage, because of the way that the hybrid cloud solutions are being built and the way that the proliferation of devices at the client side are coming in. It's really difficult to describe the edge of your network, never mind secure the edge of that network. So if you look at security from a device perspective and a people perspective, rather than a network edge perspective, that's probably the best way to look at it. Moving forward into managing data and information, of course, because as our data and information grows larger and larger all the time, then we need to turn that data into manageable information, and turn that manageable information into decision-making business intelligence. And then, of course, it's about providing that business intelligence information to the right decision makers so that they can make decisions at the right time and the right place, and hopefully make the right decisions in order to move the business and move the organization forward. And of course, big data is the next wave of managing those huge data sets. But I think even business intelligence is even though it's a relatively mature role and a relatively mature technique within our industry, I think it's still at the early stages of what it can become when it comes to providing business decision makers with what they need in order to move the organization forward. And I think providing business intelligence information through handheld and mobile devices in a very graphical interface is going to be the next way of providing that, rather than the big data sets which are downloaded through Excel spreadsheets or similar. And finally, I think the last challenge that's facing the IT professional today is how do you go about implementing all of those solutions and more. Some of those things that we've just mentioned are going to be universal across all organizations. Some of them are going to be unique to individual organizations. Do you, as an IT service, as an IT function within your organization, do you implement these solutions exclusively yourself? Do you provide, therefore, or do you source the capability to provide these solutions, or do you do a combination of both? And of course, if you are going to do the internal service provision, that means you need to make sure that your skills and your capability is up to date. If you're outsourcing, is that to individuals through a contract team, or is it going through service providers? And if you are going to go to service providers, it's turning the IT professional from being a provider to being a procurer. And of course, as soon as you become a procurer of services, then you need to have a very different mindset and even a very different skill set in order to make sure you work with providers around robust contracts, service level agreements, and so on. So I think the IT professional as the business professional is probably the end point to the challenge that's facing people today. So if you go back to the first point in the presentation about the IT professional adding business value, and then come back to the end, which is about the IT professional acting as a service broker within that business, I think two of the biggest challenges facing IT professionals today is to turn yourself from being a technologist into a business person who manages technology. And I would certainly say, that's a different type of mindset, it's a different type of skill set, and it requires you to develop personally as well as your organization to develop. So that's the kind of review of the challenges facing IT professionals today, which we discussed on the keynote session. The keynote session is available as one of the available sessions which have been recorded. So if you do want to take a look at that in more detail, I talk about each of those in slightly more detail on that keynote session. So what I'd like to do now then is just take a quick rattle through the Tech Week subjects, so that if you did manage to see one or two of these sessions but you didn't get a chance to see them all, it will be your chance to make a list of which ones you might want to watch in review when we make all of the videos and recordings available post-production over the next couple of days or so. So in a relatively fast canter, let's go through what the Tech Week content for 2014 actually was. So following the keynote session, the first session was Going Responsive with Foundation, which was delivered by our principal technologist for web and mobile development, which is David Walker. And he was talking about that very skill, which is about turning websites into responsive websites and making sure that those websites were responsive to the devices which were accessing them, and making sure you loaded the content which was applicable to the device that was able to support them. And that was using the Foundation tool set, including things like media queries, grids, and using, of course, CSS, which is becoming a key part of mobile web development today. I'm hugely a fantastic session around building the websites of tomorrow, which need to be there in order for you to be absolutely at the cutting edge of what you do. Then, following on from that, Rob Blinko, who was our principal technologist for Citrix, covered a session on WAN optimization using CloudBridge 7. CloudBridge 7 allows you to compress traffic in and over your WAN to a significant amount, up to 95% of data compression for applications, which allows you to use much more streaming type technologies over WAN links, and would certainly allow you to optimize your WAN for both public and private clouds. So Citrix are introducing with CloudBridge 7 a technology which is allowing you to bring that private or hybrid cloud into your environment without having a negative impact on your infrastructure. Following on from that, Paul Gregory had a session on extended HyperV replication. Paul Gregory is our principal technologist for Windows Server and virtualization. The advanced features of HyperV replication inside Windows Server 2012 Release 2 allows you to create a Hyper-V replica set outside of the standard replica that you create, and that replica set can be provided for even more fault tolerance for data, and even provide off geography other site and other geography support for extended replicas, so that you can provide even more fault tolerance and troubleshooting and data recovery into your Hyper-V solution. So Paul was covering exactly what you need to think about and how to implement an extended replica within Hyper-V for Windows Server 2012 Release 2. The session following that was Scott Hayes, who was our principal technologist for Apple, who was covering the mobile device management capabilities of OLX Server. And of course, with the framework for MDM embedded within the iOS, you're able to manage your iPads, your iPhones, or Macs by using the same OS X Server MDM solution. So it really does start to turn Apple into the business tool that I think we've always wanted to see from Apple, as well as being the kind of leisure and social tool which it's made its name. Very similar topic, I guess, but moving over into the Microsoft world, following on, Mark Cresswell, our principal technologist for Microsoft, delivered a great session on user experience, GUI version 2 within Microsoft, that allows you to virtualize and manage the user experience across multiple Windows platforms, particularly Windows 7 and Windows 8, so that if you were in a heterogeneous environment for Windows client, you're able to manage a consistent desktop and delegate or customer experience for Windows across multiple different operating system platforms. So UEV providing consistency of the user experience for user experience virtualization. Mark covered how to set up user experience virtualization, how to build it in a testing environment to ensure that it works successfully when you go into deployment. We spoke earlier on about business intelligence and the realm of business intelligence, moving away from the specialist and moving into providing business intelligence to decision makers in real time on mobile devices, so that they can access that business intelligence in order to continue to manage the business. Our principal technologist in business intelligence, Mark Fitzgerald, covered a session on how do we enable business intelligence through to mobile devices and create self-built packages for mobile BI, which is absolutely, again, at the cutting edge of the next generation of the BI solution. So it's all well and good saying we've got specialists in creating BI, but then it's how do you deploy that to the people who need to use it most within the business. Probably more similar topic around data and around analysis of data, but almost on a more self-serving basis. Excel 2013 has introduced a whole load of quick data analysis techniques, just straight within Excel. So huge data sets can be analyzed quickly and efficiently by using very visual data analytics built within Excel 2013. Richard Edgerton, who's our principal technologist for our business applications training, took people through a view of how Excel 2013 analytics works and what some of the outcomes were. So I think that's another session which is really useful to take a look at. If you don't think you're getting the power from Excel 2013 that you think you should be, you or your user base, then there's a good example of how Excel 2013 can really start to make a difference to the decision making within your organization. Moving away from the BI side, Gary Moby, who is our principal technologist for VMware, who is a very, very passionate VMware professional, wanted to talk to you about using Power CLI, which is the add-on that VMware have for Powershell, in which you can manage your vSphere environments. And we know that Powershell has really started to change the way in which people manage Windows infrastructure and Windows servers, moving away from being GUI-based administrative tools to the PowerShell environment from the command line, either through management or scripting. And VMware have now taken advantage of PowerShell by building Power CLI. And Gary was showing you how to manage your vSphere environment more effectively, more efficiently by using that scripted PowerShell environment plugin called Power CLI. John Cannings, our senior learning consultant for voice and data communications, then delivered a session on IP version 6. And IP version 6 is not new by any sense, but certainly hasn't had the adoption that which we expected to happen. Maybe an IP version 4 isn't going away, but John is adamant that it's time for IP version 6 to be more widely adopted. I think with the security implications and the holes that IP version 6 fixes, some of the address range problems that it fixes, and perhaps more importantly of all of these things, the routing efficiencies that IP version 6 introduces means that IP6 is certainly the one that we need to move towards. And I think IP4 has certainly had its day. IP6 is the choice moving forward. And John delivered a session on what the advantages of IP version 6 were for your organization. And that's a great one to pick up on if you're not sure about what that particular protocol is going to give you. Adrian Jateman, our head of information technology, delivered a session on application life cycle management using Visual Studio Team Foundation Server, and that was about teams of developers using Visual Studio Team Foundation Server to build, share, test, and manage code as a team of developers rather than being standalone with the usual Visual Studio tool set. Visual Studio Team Foundation Server allows more collaborative development. And I guess a key word here, because it really is one of the buzzwords in our industry today, it also allows for more agile development of software. So what Adrian was able to talk you through was how do teams work in an agile environment when they're developing software, and that has been enabled by using Visual Studio Team Foundation Server. Alina, our principal technologist for Unix and Linux, then introduced Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 7, which is still in preview, but Alina was talking through some of the features of Red Hat 7 as part of her session. So she was talking about all of the different elements that are built into the new version of Red Hat, including new virtualization support, including support for integration with VMware vSphere, and perhaps most importantly, to do with some of the security and encryption techniques which are compatible with UK and government standards these days. So there's a whole load of new features which are provisioned for the next release of Red Hat, and Alina took you through a lot of those. So again, if you're a Linux house, then it's certainly one of the topics that you should really start to look at. John Venables, a senior business applications consultant, then looked at creating custom workflows within SharePoint 2013. So how can we create workflow which helps to make business process more efficient with out-of-the-box tools from SharePoint, such as SharePoint Designer 2013? I can tell you today that was one of the most popular sessions from Tech Week, because people are really trying to get that business advantage from SharePoint if they've made investments in that particular product. Two sessions were delivered by Paul Besley, who is our principal technologist for .NET, and the first one was about async programming, which is enabled within .NET and C#5. And Paul was explaining that, of course, these days, as developing code which works in a linear fashion on a single processor is not going to take advantage of nearly every device that you buy today, from laptops up, are going to be using dual core or beyond. So let's take advantage of those processors by building code which allows you to work in a native manner. So Paul was talking through how you can build that code and how the features of .NET and C#5 allow you to build code which works across multiple processors. Further, our principal technologies for .NET and Cloud then picked up an introduction to Amazon Web Services. At QA, we're very proud to have Amazon Web Services as one of our newest partners, and we certainly know that Amazon are doing a great job of providing infrastructure as a service solutions to customers, and those customers really do need to now think about how they're going to take advantage of the Amazon Web Services Cloud provision by looking at the architecture and the tool set that Amazon provide, and how can they design, build and manage their solutions within that Amazon Cloud. So Phil did a great job of explaining what the AWS environment looks like and what were the tools and services that AWS are providing for people and how do they make those architectural decisions within AWS today. Darren McGregor, our principal technologist for cyber security and information assurance, then took a look at the changing world of malware. Malware is one of those horrible things which we continuously have to fight, and every time we produce product or solutions or policy which we think is going to prevent malware infiltration, all of a sudden the malware producers start to fight back. So Darryl, who keeps very close to this, explained what the current thinking is around managing and mitigating the threat of malware within your organization, particularly, as I said before, when your users are not within your environment and they're taking their devices away from the network and going into the public cloud or going into the home-based network where you might not have enough security in technology, so therefore you have to start to think about security through education and security through policy. Matt Bishop, our principal technologist for mobile and cloud, then picked up a topic on Microsoft BizTalk Server, which again is by no means new Microsoft BizTalk Server. It's been around a little while. Matt Bishop tells me that it certainly is a well-kept secret in the sense that organizations are not taking advantage of how BizTalk Server can start to integrate applications, enterprise applications around organizations by using open standards such as SOAP. And it really is a tool which will provide a great deal of business efficiency if it is employed and deployed successfully. So Matt is a very established subject matter expert around BizTalk, and he provided an introduction to how BizTalk Server can help to manage enterprise environments and integrate software and services. Following on from that, Paul Besley delivered a second session on classic GUI design patterns, again within .NET, working with GUI patterns for new types of programming techniques such as MVC, MVP, and MVVM, and how we can deploy and apply those patterns, and particularly how they work within the unit testing environment that's prevalent inside .NET. So that was a second session from Paul, and another Paul delivered a second session, which was Paul Gregory delivering a second session around Microsoft System Center Orchestrator, the tool which allows you to create automation within your infrastructure and business process without writing any code. It's a drag and drop type infrastructure which then, or tool set, which then turns your automation into PowerShell scripts that you can then use to deploy infrastructure without being a serious coding professional. Also allows you to provision for and manage environments into the private or public clouds as well. And System Center Orchestrator is, according to Paul, one of Microsoft's best kept IT pro secrets, and it really can start to make your organization and the deployment of technology within your organization far more effective and efficient. So that was the Tech Week 2014 sessions, and they were all absolutely superb, presented by the team and very well received. So I guess the key question is, what happens next? Well, all of the sessions which were covered in Tech Week are now being put through a post-production to make sure that they're of the highest possible quality. Following that post-production, you will, as a Tech Week attendee, be able to gain access to all of those sessions, and that will be via an email link which we will send to you. You're not just going to be able to see the session that you attended. You're going to get a link to every Tech Week session, which means that if you've seen something that takes your fancy in the review we've just done, but you didn't get a chance to see it live, you'll be able to see that session and any of the others that you want to be able to review once the session has been set up and you've received that email link. If you don't get a link over the next 5 or so working days, then you can drop us a line at techweek@qa.com. And for anybody who's interested in knowing more about the subject, because of course all of these subjects are delivered by the team which deliver our training courses within this technology set, if it tickles, it's taking your fancy and you decided you want to learn more about PowerCLI or you want to know more about AWS, then please do get in touch with us as well, either via your account manager, your QA account manager, or again via the email address of techweek@qa.com. So over the next week, you'll start to receive more information from QA and get access to even more of the Tech Week sessions that you didn't get a chance to see live. So that just about wraps it up for me. What I want to do now is I just want to take a chance to provide a few acknowledgements and thank yous, and that's to a number of groups of people. So the first group is the experts. You'll have seen all of these pictures as I went through the Tech Week sessions a few minutes ago, but I want to say thank you to the experts, and they are genuinely all experts in what they do, for delivering, creating, and hosting those Tech Week sessions. As I said, they've all been really well received, so thank you to that team. And of course, that's the team that delivered the sessions, and of course, without the people who supported those sessions, we wouldn't be where we are today. So we had a very highly skilled support team as well. Sam Tobin, who welcomed you to this session and every other session at Tech Week, is our virtual learning support specialist, so thank you to her. Tim Phillips was my guest on the, well actually I was Tim's guest on the keynote address, where Tim was the host and I was the speaker for the keynote. Again, that's one of the sessions which have been recorded and made available to you. James Wood designed all of our solutions and the website that you use to register for Tech Week, and Paul Bates managed all of our customer contact. There was more, as there always is, but I just wanted to make a special note to those four. And to finish off the whole of Tech Week 2014 and this final session, really by saying thank you to all of you who attended QA Tech Week to make it the success that it was. And I thank you, and I hope you found the whole of Tech Week 2014 useful and informative. So with that, that's the end of my session. Sam, I guess I can turn to you and ask if there's any questions from the attendees today.
There's only the one actually, and someone
okay.
Asked, is there going to be a Tech Week 2015?
Well, that's an interesting question. Look, I'm not going to commit to a Tech Week 2015 today, but what I will say is I think that it's been a huge success, and certainly what we've seen so far, and I do encourage people to send back their feedback from the attended sessions that they've attended or they will view moving forward. I'm not going to commit to Tech Week 2015, but I would be very surprised if we didn't do something again in the same fashion, because, as I say, it's been well received and very, very popular. So I hope so is the answer to that one, Sam.
Right, thanks, Jeff.
Okay, so I guess that's the only question. So it's time, I guess, to wrap up the whole of Tech Week 2014. Thanks again, everybody, for attending and making it a huge success. Thanks, everybody.